The sound of the slap echoed through the penthouse like a gunshot. Rosaline hit the marble floor hard, her cheek burning, blood blooming on her lip. Around her, 30 guests froze mid-conversation, champagne glasses suspended in shock. Victor Hands stood over her, his hands still raised, his face twisted with contempt. "Pathetic," he said, his voice carrying across the silent room. "I could kill you with one hand." From the corner, Mei Lin, his assistant, always too close, always whispering, smiled behind her wine glass. Her poison had worked perfectly. Just an hour ago, she'd whispered to Victor, "Your wife embarrassed you in front of the investors. She's making you look weak." Rosaline's body screamed. Every muscle remembered, every reflex awakened. Her hands knew exactly how to move, twist his wrist, sweep his legs, break his arrogance across the floor in 3 seconds. Instead, she bowed her head. "I'm sorry," she whispered. For a split second, fire flashed behind her eyes, screams, bodies falling, her master's desperate command echoing through burning halls. "Hide or die, Rosaline. If they find you, the dragon veil dies forever." The memory vanished as quickly as it came. "Get out of my sight," Victor sneered, turning back to his guests with a practiced smile. "Please, everyone, excuse my wife's clumsiness." Polite laughter rippled through the room. Cruel laughter. Rosaline rose slowly, carefully, like the weak woman they all believed she to be. Her legs trembled, not from fear, but from the effort of restraint. She kept her eyes lowered, her shoulders hunched, playing the part she'd perfected over 2 years of this loveless marriage. As she walked toward the bedroom, whispers followed her like daggers. Why did he marry her? She looks like she'll break from a strong wind. So pathetic. Victor's mocking laughter echoed behind her. At the doorway, Rosaline gripped the frame to steady herself, and that's when anyone truly watching would have seen it. Her knuckles went white. The grip was perfect, thumb positioned exactly right, fingers placed with lethal precision. It wasn't the grip of a weak woman catching herself. It was the grip of a warrior restraining herself from destroying everything. She released the frame and disappeared into the darkness of the hallway. Behind her, Victor poured more champagne, completely unaware. Like and subscribe, because what happens next will shock you. This weak woman has a secret that will destroy everything. The question wasn't if she would break, it was when.
2 weeks earlier, before the slap that changed everything, Rosaline had endured another kind of torture, the business dinner. She sat at the far end of the table in the private restaurant, invisible as always. Victor held court at the head, surrounded by executives and investors, his voice booming with confidence. Mei Lin sat at his right hand, where a wife should sit, leaning in to whisper, laughing at his jokes, touching his arm. No one spoke to Rosaline. When she'd tried to join a conversation about international markets, the executive had looked through her, then turned to Victor. "Your wife doesn't understand business, does she?" Victor had shrugged. "She doesn't understand much." Laughter around the table. Rosaline had lowered her eyes, her hands trembling around her water glass. Later, in the car, Mei Lin's voice drifted from the front seat. "She makes you look weak, Victor. Everyone's talking about why someone like you settled for that." In the rearview mirror, Rosaline saw Victor's jaw tighten. He didn't defend her. He never did. At home, the penthouse was cold and empty. Victor went straight to his study, closing the door without a word. Rosaline walked slowly to her separate bedroom, the room he'd assigned her because I need space. She moved like an old woman, shuffling steps, bent shoulders, trembling hands. The servants pitied her. The security guards looked away. Everyone believed the same thing. Victor Hahn's wife was the weakest, most pathetic woman in Seoul. But at midnight, when the penthouse went silent, Rosaline locked her bedroom door and transformed. Her body straightened, her eyes sharpened. She moved to the center of the room and began the forms, fluid, powerful, deadly. Her body remembered every movement from a life she'd buried 10 years ago. 10 years. The memories came in flashes as she moved. She was 18, standing in the training hall of the Dragonvale clan, the hidden martial arts family that had existed for 3 centuries, protecting ancient kung fu secrets the world had forgotten. Again, Master Shen commanded. Young Rosaline faced 10 senior students, all men, all stronger, bigger, older. She defeated them in 58 seconds. Master Shen had smiled with pride. "You are the future of our legacy, Rosaline. The Dragonvale will live forever through you." The other students, her brothers and sisters in training, had cheered. Wei, who taught her to fight with rope, Lin, who sparred with her every dawn, Master Shen's daughter, Yuki, her closest friend, her family. Then came the night of fire. She was sleeping when the screams started. Enemies, mercenaries hired by those who wanted the clan's secrets, crashed through the compound. Fire consumed the wooden halls. Steel cut through the darkness. Rosaline fought. God, how she fought. But there were too many. She watched Wei fall, a sword through his chest, watched Lin collapse, surrounded by blood, watched Yuki reach for her before the flames swallowed everything. Master Shen found her in the burning wreckage, pulled her out. "Everyone is dead," he'd said, his face covered in ash and tears. "You're the last one. You must hide your strength. If they find you, they'll kill you. The Dragonvale must be forgotten." So, she became a ghost, changed her name, dyed her hair, learned to walk slowly, speak softly, appear fragile. 3 years ago, Victor's family needed a wife for him, someone quiet, powerless, no complications. A business arrangement. Rosaline needed to disappear. The marriage was perfect. No love, no questions, just survival. She chose weakness as armor. And for 2 years, it worked. Until tonight, when that armor cracked. Rosaline finished her forms, breathing hard in her locked room. In the mirror, she saw both versions of herself, the broken wife everyone pitied and the warrior everyone had forgotten. The question was, how much longer could she be both?
2 days after the slap, Rosaline noticed the black car. It was parked across from the penthouse, tinted windows reflecting nothing. The same car that had followed her to the market, the same one idling outside the pharmacy yesterday. Her instincts, buried but never dead, screamed danger. She walked slowly to the penthouse entrance, maintaining her fragile shuffle, but her eyes tracked everything. The 2 men in dark suits pretending to read newspapers at the cafe, the third watching from the alley, the way they communicated with subtle hand signals. Professional, military-trained, hunting. Inside, she locked herself in her room and called the one person who would understand. "Master Shen," she whispered, "they found me." Silence on the other end. Then, how many? At least 3 watching the building, maybe more. General Park. Master Shen's voice was heavy with old fear. General Park, the name alone made Rosaline's blood run cold. 10 years ago, he'd been a respected military commander. Then he'd discovered whispers of the Dragonvale clan, a martial arts family guarding an ancient technique called the Forbidden Strike. A single move, perfected over centuries, that could stop a human heart without leaving a mark. Worth billions to the right buyer. Governments, criminals, assassins. Park had sent mercenaries to steal it. When the clan refused to surrender their secrets, he'd ordered them all killed. Everyone except the one who got away. "He knows it's you," Master Shen said. "He's been tracking women with the right age, background, timeline. Your marriage to Victor must have triggered something." "What do I do?" "Run. Tonight. I'll arrange—" "I can't." Rosaline looked at the locked door. If I run, he'll know for certain. He'll come after Victor, use him as bait. I need to be sure first. Rosaline, I'll be careful. She wasn't careful enough. The next afternoon, shopping for groceries Victor had demanded, Rosaline entered the underground parking garage. The fluorescent lights flickered. The space was empty, too empty. Her hand tightened on the shopping bag. 3 men emerged from behind concrete pillars, dark suits, cold eyes, moving with coordinated precision. The largest one smiled. "Mrs. Han, come quietly, and your husband lives." Rosaline's mind calculated in a split second. No witnesses. The corner camera had been spray-painted over, she'd noticed entering. No security guards on this level. Fight or die. "I don't know what you want," Rosaline said, voice trembling, playing weak. "The forbidden strike. General Park knows you have it." "I don't." "We'll beat it out of you. Or your husband. Your choice." The choice was already made. Rosaline dropped the groceries. 10 seconds. She moved like water, like lightning, like death itself. The first man lunged. She caught his wrist mid-strike, twisted with perfect leverage, and heard the bones snap. He screamed. She used his momentum to throw him into the second attacker. The third pulled a knife. Mistake. She kicked it from his hand, the blade clattering across concrete. Her follow-up kick sent him crashing through a car window, safety glass exploding. The second man recovered, threw a punch. She deflected it, stepped inside his guard, and struck his throat with 2 fingers. Not hard enough to kill, hard enough to drop him, gasping. Total time, 8 seconds. Rosaline stood over 3 unconscious bodies, breathing steady, stance perfect. Then she saw it, the distant security camera she'd missed, half hidden behind a pipe. The red light was blinking. Recording. "No," she whispered. By that evening, the video went viral. Grainy footage, blurred figure, but the movements were unmistakable, impossible, masterful. Victor watched it on his phone during a business meeting, his face going pale. "That dress," he muttered. "I bought her that dress." Beside him, Mei Lin leaned in, her voice honey-sweet poison. "Your wife was shopping today, but that can't be her, can it?" Victor watched the video again and again. The way the woman moved, fluid, economical, deadly. "No," he said, "Rosaline can barely walk without trembling." But doubt had planted itself in his mind like a seed. That night, he hired a private detective. And across the city, General Park smiled as he watched the same video. "Found you," he whispered. For 3 days, the private detective followed Rosaline. He reported back to Victor. She visits the market, buys groceries, walks slowly, speaks to no one, perfectly normal, perfectly weak. But the viral video haunted Victor. 5 million views now, comments speculating, who is this woman? Those are military-grade moves. She's definitely trained. Victor drank more, slept less. Mei Lin whispered constantly. "Maybe she's hiding something dangerous," Mei Lin curd over coffee. "Maybe she's a threat. Maybe she'll destroy you." Then the company lost the Chen contract. $50 million, gone to a competitor. Victor came home drunk that night, rage pouring off him like heat. The penthouse was full of dinner guests, investors he was trying to impress, one last desperate attempt to save face. Rosaline appeared from the kitchen, carrying a tea tray, trying to help, trying to calm him. "Victor, I made your favorite." Her hands were shaking, not from weakness this time, but from 3 days of fear, waiting for General Park's next move. The cup slipped. Tea splashed across the white Persian rug. $2,000 ruined. Silence crashed over the room. Victor's face went red. "You stupid useless!" The slap came harder than before. Rosaline's head snapped to the side. Blood touched her lips. She hit the floor in front of 20 witnesses, investors, colleagues, Mei Lin with her phone out recording. "You ruin everything," Victor shouted, standing over her. "You're worthless, an embarrassment. I should never have married you." The guests stood frozen. Mei Lin smiled, and Rosaline felt something inside her break, not her spirit, her restraint. She didn't bow this time, didn't whisper apologies. Slowly she lifted her eyes, and Victor saw something in them that made his blood run cold. They weren't the eyes of a victim, they were the eyes of a predator. "You should never hit someone," Rosaline said, her voice calm and cold as winter, "when you don't know who they are." Victor laughed nervously. "What? Are you threatening me?" He reached down to grab her arm, to pull her up, to assert dominance in front of his guests. She caught his hand. The grip was gentle, almost tender, but Victor couldn't move. His wrist was locked in place by strength that shouldn't exist. "What?" he started. Rosaline stood in one fluid motion, still holding his wrist. Then, using leverage he didn't understand, momentum he couldn't counter, she threw him. Victor Hahn, 6 feet tall, 200 pounds of ego and entitlement, flew across his own living room and hit the marble floor hard. Gasps erupted from the guests. Victor lay on his back, shock and terror flooding his face. "How did you—" Mei Lin screamed. "She's attacking him! Someone call security! She's insane!" Rosaline stood over her husband, breathing calmly, stance perfect. For a moment, no one moved. Then the windows exploded. Glass shattered inward as 6 men in tactical gear crashed through, rappelined from the rooftop. They moved with military precision, boots crunching on broken glass, weapons drawn. The guests screamed. Some ran for the door, others dove behind furniture. The lead attacker, a man with a scar across his throat, smiled at Rosaline. "The general sends his regards. Time to come home, dragon." Victor, still on the floor, looked from the armed men to his wife in absolute confusion and terror. Rosaline's hands shifted into a fighting stance he'd never seen before. "Get out," she told Victor quietly. "Crawl if you have to. Just get out." "What is happening?" he whispered. The scarred man laughed. "Your wife didn't tell you. She's the last of the Dragon Veil, and we've come to collect." The attack began, and Victor Hahn finally learned who he'd been married to all along.
The living room became a battlefield. 8 elite fighters surrounded Rosaline. Behind overturned furniture, Victor watched in frozen terror, his mind unable to process what his eyes were seeing. In the corner, Mei Lin held up her phone, recording everything, her face pale with shock. The scarred man attacked first. Rosaline moved. It was like watching her shed a skin. The weakness, the trembling, the fragility, all of it evaporated in an instant. She flowed like water, struck like lightning, moved with a grace that was almost beautiful. Almost. The first attacker swung a tactical baton. She caught his wrist, redirected his momentum, and used a spinning kick to send him crashing into the grand piano. The sound of breaking wood echoed through the penthouse. The second pulled a gun. Mistake. Rosaline closed the distance before he could aim, her hand a blur as she struck the weapon from his grip and followed with an elbow to his jaw. He dropped like a puppet with cut strings. A third lunged with a knife. She sidestepped, caught his arm, and used his own blade against him, a shallow cut across his thigh that dropped him screaming. The fourth tried to grab her behind. She threw her head back into his nose, spun, and swept his legs. As he fell, she tore down the curtain rope and wrapped it around his throat, choking him unconscious in seconds. Her face was calm, focused, terrifying. Victor couldn't breathe. Who is she? 4 attackers down, 4 remaining. They circled more carefully now, respect and fear in their eyes. They were professionals, but they'd never faced anything like this. Slow clapping echoed from the shattered window.
General Park stepped through, an older man with military bearing and eyes like winter. Behind him, more armed men filed in, surrounding the penthouse. Magnificent, the last dragon finally reveals herself. Rosaline straightened, breathing hard but standing tall. Blood trickled from a cut above her eye. I left that life behind. Did you? Park smiled coldly. Your clan guarded the forbidden strike for 3 centuries, the technique worth billions. You're the only one left who knows it. The technique died with my family. Then you'll die too. Park nodded to his champion, a massive man who stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. The fight was brutal. This fighter was different. Trained, experienced, deadly. He knew what Rosaline was, what she could do. They exchanged blows that shook furniture. Rosaline blocked a strike that would have broken ribs, countered with a palm strike to his chest. He absorbed it, caught her ankle on a kick, threw her into the wall. She hit hard. Old injuries from the massacre 10 years ago, never fully healed, reopened. Pain lanced through her side. Victor saw blood seeping through her shirt, saw her movements slow, saw her struggling. Something broke inside him. This woman, his wife, had survived a massacre, had hidden for 10 years, had endured his cruelty, his neglect, his violence, all while carrying this impossible strength, this terrible past, and he'd called her weak. He'd hit her. Please, please don't die. Rosaline heard nothing. She fought through pain, through exhaustion, through wounds that should have stopped her. The final fighter threw a final punch. She caught it, twisted, and struck 3 pressure points in rapid succession. His eyes rolled back. He collapsed. Rosaline stood over him, swaying. General Park's smile faded. Impressive, but I have 30 more men outside. You can't win. Maybe not. Master Shen's voice came from the doorway. The elderly man stepped in, flanked by police. You're under arrest, General. We've been building a case against you for years. Tonight, you gave us everything we needed. Park's face went white. His men hesitated. Run or surrender, Shen said quietly. They ran. Park was dragged away, screaming threats, and Rosaline collapsed. Victor caught her before she hit the ground, holding her gently for the first time in their marriage. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I'm so sorry. Her eyes fluttered. You never asked. Then darkness claimed her. In the ambulance, Victor held her hand, crying openly. Mei Lin's video ended, capturing everything. The fight, the revelation, the truth. The weak wife was gone, and Victor Han finally understood what he'd lost. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and regret. Rosaline lay in the bed, bandaged and still. Monitors beeped steadily. IV lines fed into her arms. Her face was peaceful in unconsciousness, more peaceful than Victor had ever seen it. He sat beside her, hadn't moved in 24 hours, hadn't slept, hadn't eaten. His expensive suit was wrinkled and stained with her blood. His eyes were red from crying. When Mei Lin tried to enter, he looked up with such fury that she stumbled backward. Get out, he said quietly. You're fired. If I ever see you near my wife again, I'll destroy you. Mei Lin fled. Hours later, an elderly man entered. He moved with quiet authority, his presence filling the room despite his age. Master Shen. Victor recognized him immediately. This was the man from Rosaline's life before, the one who'd brought the police, the one she'd called for help. She'll live, Shen said, checking her vitals with practiced ease. But they know she's alive now. More will come. Rosaline's eyes fluttered open. I'm tired of hiding. Then we relocate you. New identity, new... No. Victor's voice broke. He fell to his knees beside the bed. Please, please forgive me. I was blind. I was cruel. I'll protect you now. I'll spend my life making this right. Just, please, give me one chance. Rosaline looked at him with those calm, knowing eyes. Master Shen sat heavily in the chair.
She needs to know everything, Victor, about why this happened. So he told her. The Dragonvale clan had existed for 300 years, protecting an ancient kung fu technique called the Forbidden Strike. 10 years ago, General Park, then a military commander, discovered whispers of this technique, worth billions to governments and criminals alike. Park sent mercenaries. The clan refused to surrender their secrets, so he ordered them all killed. Rosaline was 18, the clan's fiercest warrior. She fought like a demon that night, but there were too many. Everyone died. Her friends, her training siblings, everyone. Victor's face went white. I beat the woman who survived a massacre. Marriage to you was supposed to be her camouflage. A wealthy businessman's weak wife, no one would look twice. She chose to appear fragile to stay alive. And I made her life hell, Victor whispered. Every party where people mocked her, she endured for safety. Every insult I ignored, she absorbed to survive. Every time I hit her, his voice broke completely. Oh God, what have I done? Rosaline reached out slowly, her hand trembling from weakness, not fear. She touched Victor's face. I hid my strength for peace. I accepted your silence for safety. I endured your coldness for survival. Hope bloomed in Victor's eyes. I'll change, I promise. I'll be worthy of you. But the moment you raised your hand against me, she continued, her voice steady, you stopped being my husband. His face drained of color. I don't hate you, Victor. She pulled her hand back. And I don't want revenge. But I want a divorce. The words hit like a physical blow. Victor staggered backward. No, he breathed. Please, I love you now. I understand now. Love without respect is not love. A marriage without safety is a prison. I gave you 2 years of my life. You gave me pain. Master Shen stood. She's made her decision. Please, Victor grabbed her hand. I'll do anything.
Skirts of Seoul. 3 days passed in the safe house, a quiet apartment on the outskirts of Seoul, protected by Master Shen's remaining contacts. Rosaline healed slowly. The physical wounds would fade, the other wounds would take longer. Master Shen sat across from her, tea cooling between them. General Park escaped custody. He has connections, resources. He will return. I know. We must relocate you. New identity. Maybe Singapore, or... I'm done hiding. Rosaline's voice was firm. But I'm also done with that marriage. Victor has been calling, constantly. He's desperate to speak with you. I have nothing to say to him. She wasn't lying. Every day, flowers arrived. Massive arrangements she immediately donated to the hospital. Letters came in Victor's handwriting. She left them unopened. Twice he appeared at the building entrance, and security turned him away while he shouted apologies to the windows. He called Master Shen 12 times a day, begging for intercession. Please, he'd sobbed on the phone that morning. Just 5 minutes. I need to tell her I understand now. I need her to know I've changed. Master Shen hung up. But change was happening, whether Rosaline witnessed it or not. In his penthouse, Victor had finally listened to Mei Lin's confession. She'd come crawling back, seeking forgiveness, admitting she'd manipulated him for years. I was jealous. I loved you. So I poisoned you against her, made you see weakness instead of strength, made you cruel when you could have been kind. Victor had fired her on the spot, disgust twisting his features. Then came the memories, flooding back with brutal clarity. The business party where a colleague called Rosaline useless and Victor had laughed along. The night she'd cried in her room, he'd heard through the door but chosen to ignore it, meeting colleagues for drinks instead. The way she'd flinched every time he raised his voice, and he'd never asked why. The weakness everyone saw, trauma he'd made infinitely worse.
I destroyed her, and I called it marriage. He told his reflection. And I called it marriage. The change came too late for Rosaline, but it was real. When Victor learned General Park had escaped, he did something stupid and brave. He went looking for the general himself, alone, armed with nothing but business contacts and desperate courage. Park's men found him first. They beat him badly in a warehouse, broke 2 ribs in his nose, but Victor wore a wire. His testimony, his recordings, his business connections tracing Park's money, it bought the authorities time to build a real case. It bought Rosaline time to relocate safely. When Master Shen told her what Victor had done, Rosaline felt nothing. Not anger, not love, just emptiness. He has changed, Shen said quietly. Good. Rosaline stared out the window. He needed to, but not for me, for himself. He's asking to see you one last time before you leave. No. Rosaline. He doesn't get closure from me. He doesn't get forgiveness that makes him feel better. He gets to live with what he did. She turned to face her teacher. That's his journey now, not mine. The divorce papers arrived that afternoon. Rosaline signed without hesitation, her hand steady. That night, she packed her few belongings. A duffel bag held everything she owned: clothes, a photo of her clan before the massacre, the divorce decree. Master Shen found her standing at the window, looking at Seoul's lights one last time. Are you ready? I've been ready for 10 years. She shouldered the bag. I just needed to stop being afraid. Of Park? Of myself. She smiled slightly. I spent a decade hiding my strength because I thought it made me a target. But weakness didn't protect me. It just made me a victim. And now? Now I'm done being either. One last night in the city that had been her cage. Tomorrow, she would fly.
Rosaline stood at the edge of a cliff, the city far behind her, nothing but wilderness ahead. Her bags were packed, her wounds were healing, her heart, for the first time in years, felt light. Master Shen stood beside her, his own injuries bandaged, but his spirit strong. Are you ready? He asked. More than ready. They were heading to an undisclosed location, a hidden training ground, where Rosaline would do what she was always meant to do: teach, train new students, rebuild the Dragonvale legacy, but differently this time. No more secrets kept in darkness, no more hiding for survival, just strength, honor, and freedom. Far behind them in Seoul, Victor Han sat alone in his penthouse. The space was clean now, organized. He'd changed everything. Fired corrupt executives, restructured his company ethically, donated millions to domestic violence shelters. He'd changed himself, too. Therapy, accountability, growth. But he remained alone. On his desk sat a single photo of Rosaline from their wedding day, not as possession, as reminder of what cruelty destroys, of what he'd lost through his own hands. He would never remarry. He knew he didn't deserve to. At the mountain peak, Rosaline closed her eyes and breathed deeply. I spent 10 years hiding from my past, 2 years hiding in a marriage. Now I hide from nothing. Master Shen smiled. You are finally yourself again. Rosaline opened her eyes, and they blazed with purpose. No, I'm finally better than I was. She moved to the cliff's edge and began her forms. The movements were fluid, powerful, perfect. Dragonvale technique passed down through centuries, now flowing through her without shame, without fear. The sun rose behind her, painting the sky in gold and crimson. She moved with grace and strength, alone but whole, judged by no one, restrained by nothing. Just her, the mountain, and the freedom she'd earned. Master Shen watched with pride, then turned to descend the path, leaving her to her practice. Rosaline's silhouette stood against the rising sun, arms extended, body balanced, spirit unbroken. A voice seemed to whisper on the wind. He thought he married a weak woman. He lost the strongest woman he would ever meet. In soul, Victor stared at the empty space where his wife used to sit. In the mountains, Rosaline stood tall, and between them lay a truth that would never change. Some losses are deserved, some freedom is earned, and the strongest exit is the one you choose for yourself. She was finally free, and she would never be caged